This is Rogers TV.
Welcome back to Gale Force Wins Season 2 on Rogers TV, where we explore the journeys of interesting people in and around Newfoundland, Labrador, Canada, and the rest of the world.
To another edition of Gale Force Wins. And I want to tell you, it's always great to be in conversation with entrepreneurs that are doing wonderful things in our region. I'm Alan Dale, and with me, as always, my good buddy from the East End of St. John's, Jerry Carew. How are you, Jerry?
Should I talk about the weather?
If you want to.
Yeah, we're in the midst of a week, the fun week. We've talked to so many people, haven't we? We were in Argentia yesterday, but ultimately we love people that do things business-wise, and particularly little sideline things. As I said before we started recording, I did that for 35 years. So we are really eager to hear your journey.
Well, I'm interested, Jerry, that you didn't even talk about the weather because it's a damp, old, dreary night in St. John's tonight, and what an appropriate conversation to have. So, Maria, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Well, my name is Maria Halfyard. I'm from St. John's. I'm one of 6 kids, so I'm the youngest. Well, I'm a twin, so I'm number 5. I guess I grew up very sporty. I played a lot of sports, had a paper route at 12, so I worked hard early. Went to university, did biochem, realized I didn't want to work in a lab. I did a business course, and I fell in love with business. So I did a minor in business, and then I just kept going. I did a master's in business. Started my first job at the Marine Institute, and I'm still there 20 years later.
Oh, wow.
And I did a second master's in business and maritime management.
Wow.
So just to learn more about the business of shipping and maritime studies, and I just love the world of business. And I guess starting my own wasn't too far away from that.
Maria, was all your studies in Newfoundland, or did you go elsewhere for them?
Nope, all here.
Everything was done right here at Memorial University. Mm-hmm. So 6 kids. You are a twin, and you guys are number 5 twins. Tell me what it was like growing up in a big family like that. That's a big group.
Yeah, a lot of laughing.
Yeah.
We had to laugh.
Yeah.
Because my parents were very strict.
Is that right?
Yeah, we did a lot together. I mean, from the youngest to the oldest, there's only 7 years difference.
Oh, wow.
So
okay.
We're all really close today.
Yeah.
It's funny, with this business I have here, when I was young, I wanted to be a fashion designer.
Really?
And, and I completely changed my mind after a while.
Right.
But my sisters used to laugh and poke fun at me and say, you can't even draw.
Right.
So, and I used to say, I'm going to get the last laugh. and it's funny that this kind of developed, 35 years later.
And Maria, all girls, boys, what's the mix of the kids?
2 boys and 4 girls.
2 boys, 4 girls. What mom and dad, what were they up to when you were growing up?
They worked hard.
Yeah?
Yeah. They were both teachers.
Okay.
And then my mom delved into the entrepreneur world as well. She became, I guess, downtown. She owned a lot of houses and rented them out to people. So landlord, I guess.
Right.
So she was teaching, and then she kind of morphed into doing this.
Yeah.
How old would she be when she started that?
In her 40s.
Wow.
Yeah. And that became very successful for her. She renovated them, and she really took care of her tenants, I must say. She really nurtured. They were long-term, and then she slowly sold them off, and she's done very well. So I guess I learned a lot from watching her.
Right. So kitchen table discussion must have been kind of fun at your house with all of the conversations moving.
A lot of tenant stories, that's for sure.
A lot of tenant stories.
A lot of characters.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about, we grew up very privileged, and we learned that, there's a lot of people not as fortunate. So we got to meet them and just understand different ways people grow up and their circumstances. So
what are the siblings up to? How did their journey unfold, or still unfolding?
My brother's in Toronto, sister's in New Brunswick. 2 sisters here and a brother here. So we all did fairly well. My twin sister kept in with health sciences. She did biochem as well. My sister Julia is a singer, and just government, and my brother's in mining, and in that field.
Wow. So it must have been, as you say, I mean, I can't imagine 6 kids. I grew up in a family of 5 siblings, and that was busy enough. But there was a big gap between my 4 older sisters, and I was the youngest by 7 years to the next one. So I had a lot of mothers in my life growing up, which was absolutely fantastic. I can only imagine what it would be like with 6 around the table. And Dad was teacher. What kind of teacher was he? University,
No,
high school? Or?
High school, industrial arts, and geography.
Okay, wow. That sounds exciting. So
I had them both as teachers.
Oh, yeah.
What school was that?
Vaders. So it was good and bad.
Yeah.
When your classmates would make fun, and you'd walk in the room and they'd shut up, and I'm like, you can
Say what you want.
Yeah, you can talk about my parents. I don't mind.
My next door neighbor was my grade 4 teacher, which I found that awkward. Having a parents would have been really challenging, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
I used to ask Mom. This was grade 6, I think. I had my mom, and I used to walk up, ask her what's for supper, and she's like, "You're wearing the floor out." She said, "Sit down."
What was that like, though? I mean, going home at night. I mean, to shift context like that, it must be pretty weird.
We when we got home, she made us leave the house, and she locked the door.
Oh, yeah?
She had 30 kids every day.
Right.
When we came home, it was outside, play.
Yeah.
So we grew up in a neighborhood full of kids. She never knew where we were. We were out up Mount Scio area, building forts, playing sports, hide and seek, with all the guys and girls on the streets. So I must say, it was a fun childhood.
That's awesome. You said, you mentioned that it was quite sporty. What kind of sports were you
I
involved?
played soccer. I was a goalkeeper for 15 years.
Oh, wow.
And then I played touch football. Yeah.
Wow. Did you continue that at the varsity level, or?
No, my studies, I just really concentrated on those. I didn't, but I just stopped playing touch football just before COVID. So,
Is that right?
Yeah,
Wow.
I just got too many injuries. I'm getting older.
Tell me now about business. Do you remember the first business course you took, and what was it about?
It was entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Yeah, 101 or 1001. And I just fell in love with the concept of bringing ideas to life,
Right.
and I used to carry this idea book with me all the time, and anything that I would think of, I'd write it down. And this is not my first venture, actually. It's my first good and growing venture.
Right.
But, I've had failures. So,
Yeah.
and things that was just too big for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But I fell in love with strategy. Marketing wasn't my favorite, but I've actually learned that it's become one of my favorite things about business. But, strategy, and I was pretty good at finance as well. So just the different facets. I was never an expert in one thing. I just kind of was a generalist. And that's what I liked the best about it.
Perfect entrepreneur.
Perfect entrepreneur, right? Yeah. What were those other businesses? Kind of what were you involved in?
I wanted to start a wind farm.
Yeah.
Way back when, and then a moose farm, to export overseas. But we just don't have the regulatory programs here for that. I wanted to start an offshore port facility in Holyrood, and those are just monster ones. I wanted to have an offshore storage facility for marine product. Those didn't really get off the ground, but I did have a proposal, like a business writing business that I helped start up, business plans. So I did a fair bit of those.
Cool. Yeah.
And then what else did I do? I flipped houses for 10 years with my sister, with my twin sister. So we were kind of the property sisters.
Right.
So we did do very well with that until the downturn. We flipped, I think, 9 houses.
Okay. Yeah. So you'd buy them, do them up, and put them on the market. Yeah. That's fantastic. So you're always into something.
Yeah.
I got to ask you this, the first house, tell us a little bit how you felt when you did that. Because you bought it, I guess, did you? And then renovated it?
Well, it was right after my graduate degree, and I bought a house downtown, and it was a fixer-upper. but that's all I really could afford. But I walked in and I went, oh, the energy of the house. When you walk into a house, you know it's yours, right? So I walked in, I said, yeah, we can fix this up. And we were in there 2 years, and my mom was buying houses already, so I could see what she was doing. And then I said to my sister one morning, I said, why don't we buy another one and sell it, do it up and sell it. So we did it. We did it in like 4 months.
Okay.
And then I ended up selling the one we were in, and then we just kept going. And then
Were you doing some of the work yourself?
Oh, a lot of it, most of it.
Wow.
Yeah. We would hire contractors to do like what was required by a code.
Yeah.
But we did all the tear down, all the painting. And yeah, we got our hands dirty.
Took guts to buy that first one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was nervous. We had 3 mortgages at one point, and I lost a lot of sleep on that, right?
I bet.
It was very stressful. But we bought one house that was completely burnt out. I mean, scraping soot off beams was just, I mean, we had so much fun, but it was hard work, but we weren't scared of it.
And it's one thing to do that with a business partner, right? It's another thing to do that maybe with a sibling, but with a twin, there must be. Tell me about that experience.
We're super close.
Yeah.
Like, we're inseparable. I have 2 other sisters. I don't think, or 2 brothers. I wouldn't be able to do that with.
Right.
We would fight, and I just like I was the business side. My sister Sarah was the contractor side, and she operated the tools. She was that. So we kind of had really good complementary skill sets.
Right.
And I managed the budget, and she knew the talk of with the contractors. So the contractors sometimes would try to fool us with certain lingo, and she knew the difference.
Some of those other businesses that you mentioned, Maria, I mean, those are interesting. A windmill farm, I mean, that's no small venture. Harvesting moose meat and exporting it, that's no big venture.
No.
Where does this big visioning come from? Like, are all of your ideas in that stratosphere?
I think I just think big.
Yeah. Is everything a moonshot?
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, at the time I thought they were doable.
Right.
Just as long as I do this, and this, and then when I spent a year on a lot of them just doing the backup research and realized that a moose farm, you can't export meat in Newfoundland. So I was like, okay, to change that regulatory, you need the federal government to put a facility here. Like it was insurmountable at the time. So then I moved on to the next idea because, of course, my book of ideas, I said, one of these are going to stick.
One of these going to hit.
Yeah.
And do you still keep a book of ideas?
I do, but I don't tend not to write in it as much because I focus on the one that's now sticking. Yeah. And put all my effort into that.
Are you one of those people that have like dozens of ideas every day and you look at something and you can kind of see around the corner?
Yeah. Oh, I work full time. So I'm always coming up with strategy ideas to enhance the business there. So it's just I guess it's my job and what I love to do. It's my passion, really, I think.
And, sometimes when I ask people if they consider themselves as they take it kind of as, oh, that's a bit lofty. But would you consider yourself a visionary?
I know the definition of a visionary, but the visionary leaders, and then there's managerial, right? Mm-hmm. I consider myself a managerial, actually, because I like to bring the ideas to fruition, so bringing them to life. Visionaries, I think, are very, they kind of set the tone, they orchestrate the framework of what's going on, and then people implement it under them. And maybe I do a little bit of both. I don't know, but I like getting my hands dirty in the implementation and just getting it done.
Yeah. Sometimes we find, we're in a lot of conversations, Jerry and I, and a lot of people have some great ideas. And one of the things that often separates people with a lot of great ideas is their ability to act, get out there and do it. And it sounds to me like you act on a lot of these things.
Well, yeah, I always say there's talkers and doers.
Right.
And I like working with doers
Yeah.
because I feel like I'm a doer.
Yeah.
You know what's funny about that statement? I think about me and you, Alan. Is we're talker doers.
Yeah.
That's what this is.
Well, we're listeners, I think, Jerry.
Okay.
At least I try to be a listener.
No,
I don't know about you, but-
I'm trampling on it all. I'm not.
You're a
listening.
talker, doer, listener. You
I
gotta
like
make a new. You gotta make a new
Talker
word.
doer, TDL. Talker doer listener.
No, but it's I too, Maria, like to be around doers, right? Jerry and I we use the expression, a band expression, right? We just say, let's just get the gig, and we'll practice towards the gig, right? And it's all about getting moving, getting out of the gate. And I find a lot of people they think of 1,000 reasons why it can't work, or why, as opposed to maybe folks like yourself, well, let's give this a try and see where it goes, because there's a lot to be learned from trying and making the mistakes.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
And I think there's room. You need visionaries too.
Yeah.
Especially in larger corporations. But for something that's more like sole source or sole proprietor, you need to kind of got to have the doer part of you as well.
So now you and your sister entrepreneurial, clearly mom entrepreneurial. Did anybody else sprout into the entrepreneurial field since?
Yeah, my older sister, well, she's a singer, so she performs, so she also works full time. She owns property as well. My brother's he does contract work for mining companies, developing maintenance programs for them. So we all kind of have our side gigs, I guess.
Everybody's got a side hustle.
Yeah.
Would Mom have been the impetus for that?
I think, well, for sure, I think, yeah. She raised 6 kids, and we weren't all, good. She was a teacher for almost 30 years, and she had a thriving business, and she was very active in her church community. So she didn't stop.
Wow.
And
What was like sitting at the kitchen table with her? Did she delve into the business side much?
Sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the table was loud, right?
Yeah.
There was 6 of us trying to get airspace. So
And food.
yeah, and food. Yeah, but the thing was, if you didn't eat what was in front of you, there was nothing else, right? But I often tell my mom, she didn't remember this, but when I was 15, she handed me the book, The Wealthy Barber.
Yeah.
And she said, never depend on anyone for your wealth.
Right.
And
Wow.
I never forgot that. And she thinks I took it too seriously because I just go. But it's true. Like, it's not, that was more about managing your wealth and being prepared in certain circumstances.
Right.
So, I mean, there's a lot of instances where, that people are stuck because they can't, they're not as independent. So I think I really took that independence to heart. And I really am, with my new business now, it's being, having that independence and the grit to go out and do it without depending on someone else, right? Just go out and do it. You have yourself and the energy and the mindset. You can do it.
It's funny, sorry, Alan, when I remember, I get what you're saying. When I was working for advertising, I respected the effort, and it was 100% commission, but making your own money, there was something special about that. And the pride that I felt was, so I get that. I get what you're saying. There's something about creating something, isn't there?
Yeah.
And grit, right? Grit goes a long way. You don't have to be the most talented person in the room, but man, if you can drive hard, you'll go far, right? And there's such great examples of musicians that they had the determination, grit, and they went further than everybody else.
Yeah, it's the persistence. Yeah. And I always, in some of my marketing ads, I talk about persistence and having that drive and the strength to get past the barriers that, we talk about the barriers with, getting out in the rain, and being protected. Well, then, but you can also, it's kind of like a analogy to overcoming the elements that face you every day.
Yeah. Right.
And then just keep going. You might get wet. Yeah. Not with my raincoat though. But just keep going.
Yeah. Now, that's a good segue into the next part of this conversation. So tell us what you're up to in the moment and why we should pay attention to that.
Well, I started Murnini in 2020, just at the beginning of COVID. 5 years prior to that, it was one of my ideas in my idea book. And because I went to work and it was driving rain and I had this really great outfit on and then it was just soaked. And, you know, wearing a skirt or a pair of pants with it drenched is not fun, right?
No.
So, and all the raincoats that I had were sporty and short. So I said, there's got to be something out there that I can buy. So I searched online. I can actually remember the night I was sitting on my bed, just scrolling through websites in Europe, Canada, US, nothing. Trench coats, but trench coats are not waterproof. But so I had put it in my idea book that, you know, a long, full-length raincoat is needed. So within, you know, back burner, front burner, back burner, front burner. Finally, when my other ideas didn't pan out, I said, okay, I'm going to go for this. Okay. So I took a full year to do some major research on type of material, like this is polymer stuff in science, and looking at manufacturers overseas. Canada, I tried to get it done in Canada, but it's very, very difficult. And I guess 2020, I had a product. I had a shipment coming from overseas, and I said, I'm going to launch this. So,
I mean, to walk us through what's involved in designing a piece of clothing and then getting it to the shelf. I mean, that is a huge undertaking.
Yeah, well, like I said, my sister said I couldn't draw. Right. So I can sketch. Right. So I kind of just sketched out what I wanted in a coat. And I wanted it to look like an old fisherman slicker, harvester slicker, you say now. And then I hired a girl in Montreal who was a fashion designer to put the proper, you know, spec to the technical spec to my drawing. And then I was on manufacturing websites like Alibaba and all that, trying to get AliExpress to find a manufacturer. So I got a bunch of responses and I just sent them the spec. Can you send me samples? And then I picked one that was great customer service, great quality, understood my vision, and we worked for a full year prototype. We went through 4 or 5 prototypes to get to where I was happy. And then I said, all right, find the money and then go.
I've never ever thought about this before. So you literally sent the designs to multiple companies and they sent you back samples. Mm-hmm. And then when you finally settled on one, you started working with them on prototypes. Yeah. And that took a year. Yeah. So they're sorry, Alan, they're eagerly anticipating getting your contract to build to create these. Yeah. And so they bet on it, right? So they bet they invest because they didn't charge me for the development fee. That's what I was wondering. That's fascinating.
Some do, but this company didn't. And this lady, she was wonderful. She understood what I wanted. Anything that I wanted to change last minute, she said no problem. And we've had iterations because we haven't been perfect the first time around, but I've had repeat two different shipments from them since. So we've had 3 shipments. So it's a success on her end as well as mine. Right.
Tell me about I want to go back to the design piece again, mm-hmm. right? So you had the vision in your mind, you sent it off to this person in Montreal and she designed it. How long was that process going back and forth to get that perfect look?
We actually didn't have a physical product. It was only pictures.
Right. Pictures. Yeah.
Maybe 6 months. It wasn't very long because there was only so much she could do. Right. And I'm actually still in touch with her. That was years ago now, maybe 8 years ago. And she was pleasantly surprised that Al actually came to fruition. But the real development came when I worked with the factory.
Right. Yeah. And so I got to ask you about the name. What's the story behind the name?
So my name is Maria. So with six kids or 5 siblings, Maria was really hard to say. And so they would say, they would just, they would do a terrible job. So
Mangle it.
They would mangle it. Thank you. And they would just say, so it would end up being Mernini. And so
which is easier to say than Maria.
Mernini. So that your siblings call
Come
you
on,
Mernini.
siblings.
My mom really called me Mernini, and
Okay.
then it got shortened to Nini. So the family still call me Nini today.
Okay.
Yeah. So all my nieces and nephews, they call me Nini.
Well, that's a great story behind the
Yeah,
name, for sure.
I actually had like 5 different names for this company. And I used to get my friend to do all the logos, and I'd repeat. And she's like, "Can you just pick a name?" I said, "No, it has to be perfect.
Yep.
It has to be perfect. It has to speak to me, and it has to have longevity." And then one day I was on my couch. I was quiet. It was like 10 o'clock at night, and I just said Mernini out loud. And I called my niece and nephew, and I said, "What about this?" And they went, "Perfect. We want 90% of your company because that's what we call you." They think they came up with it, but no. And everyone loved it. Everyone. And so I didn't put a logo on it. I just chose a font that would, to me, scream fashion. And I actually researched a lot about font for fashion.
Yeah.
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 And
So tell me about that. So, well, maybe we should stick on the production of the product. So that had to be quite a process, making sure that it was exactly the way you wanted it to be. And then, I mean, the color palette is incredible that you've chosen, and getting to that point. Walk me through that kind of, because that's a side of a business that I don't think many people would have gone through.
And additionally to that, I'm looking at the tag here, sizing, like color, sizing, the whole thing.
Oh, that was very challenged. Sizing is still a challenge with the body shapes are so different, and trying to fit everyone has been challenging. We've had to change a few sizes over the last couple of years. But those production factories are very experienced.
Right.
I mean, they do, tens of thousands of units, like in one order. I don't go that large yet, but they have a process of, they send you the sample, and then they send you the factory then orders the fabric from another factory.
Okay.
And then they send you the sample, you approve it. Then they send you the pre-production sample, and then they send you the production sample. So
Wow.
it's a lot.
Yeah, and back and forth and back and forth.
And these are manufactured in China, so it's a far away.
Right,
So we're
100%.
waiting like the shipment, because sometimes I'm so I need to get these produced. I need to get them on the ship by this date. And they're like, well, we have, there is the process. And it's, for me, it's quality too. It's the quality assurance.
Right.
I do inspections of the factory.
You go over?
No, I haven't. Well, since COVID, we
Yeah,
haven't been able to
right.
go over, but I hire third parties.
Right.
So third-party inspections go in and look at their certification, but also we do a pre-production inspection for every order to ensure that they're following all the specs.
Right.
And then they send me a huge detailed report they'll do like 40% samples.
Right.
That's very large. Usually it's not as large as that, but I want them to inspect like a large portion of the production.
And then the logistics of, as you say, getting them on a ship and stuff like that. Are you doing all that, or are they doing all that?
Well, I hire P.F. Collins.
Okay. So they do all that piece for you.
Yeah. So, but I'm in touch with them frequently about when it's at the port of origin, and then when it's coming over, where it's landing. Then there's a train. So the customs, you're waiting. Train to Montreal, either truck it here or ship it through OceanX. It really depends. Like sometimes trucking is more expensive than shipping from Montreal. So it's headaches, a lot of headaches, stressful time, especially when Vancouver's so busy. I had a product there for like 5 weeks just sitting there.
Yeah.
And they charged me for for space.
On the dock.
Yeah.
Yeah. You're renting the dock space.
And it's not my fault.
Right.
You know, they have
Yeah,
had
yeah.
a huge backlog, but I got to wait for all that to move before it gets on the train. And
Yeah.
so, and when there was a few years back when there was a fire on one of the container boats, well, it wasn't mine, thank goodness, but I know companies that had products lost on that ship.
Oh, wow. So
There's so many risks
Yeah.
to it, and you put in so much investment into it and your time. It can be very stressful, and you've got customers waiting because
Right.
I do a lot of pre-order,
Yeah.
and but mostly the customers have been great. They've been very happy with the product, but they've also been very patient, and I think they just love the story. And
Yeah, but so I'm glad that you explained all that, because when somebody now, when they rush out after this podcast to buy all these products, they're going to know the back end of the whole thing to say, oh, wow, that's quite a process to get that here. Are they on store shelves, or do people buy them online? From
no,
your-
both. So that's another thing about it's the business model of selling, right? So you can do all online, which is e-commerce, which I had envisioned that's how I would go, but I learned quite quickly that my target audience wants to feel it. They want to try it, you know? So I changed the model to retail and e-commerce. So the retail companies, which I'm selling in 8 provinces now, they get a wholesale price. They buy it at a wholesale price and then sell it at my retail price.
Right.
So they get a cut. And then, you know, I lose that portion, but the visibility is so much better and the volume is increased of selling, right? So.
And where are you selling? Like, what provinces are you? It must be BC. Lots of rain out
BC,
there.
but I'm actually hiring a consultant now to really move into that, to the West Coast.
Right.
BC, Alberta, Ontario, Quebec, and the Atlantic provinces.
That's great. So what about the product separates itself from everything else on the market?
Well, there's not a whole lot of full length waterproof raincoats. Now, waterproofing is complicated because fabric is never 100% waterproof. It's rated to a hydrostatic pressure.
Okay.
Right. So this is rated to 10,000.
I saw that.
Yeah.
I was wondering what that meant.
Yeah.
You know?
So if you have like a test tube and you fill it with water, so you got 10,000 milliliters there,
Right.
then that pressure on the fabric, once it exceeds that amount, water will find a way.
Okay.
Right. So the thicker the coating, probably the higher the hydrostatic pressure. So fish harvesters wear PVC, right?
Right.
Very high hydrostatic pressure count. So it's very, very waterproof.
Right.
Also,
Heavy,
a little
and you'll get
stiff and harder,
it's very
uncomfortable.
And that was actually I used PVC as my first prototype. Way too heavy.
Right.
So this is a polyurethane, much lighter, flexible.
Yeah.
And it's more for everyday fashion.
Yeah.
And so this, you know, when I say 100% waterproof, it is to really the conditions you're going to be in.
Yeah.
But if you're going to be in a hurricane or, you know, you might
You probably
Reach out to your fish harvester friend.
You might want to wear a PVC coat.
Get their gear. Yeah. Shouldn't be out anyway.
Yeah.
Right.
on the
So
way to a sales presentation in a hurricane.
so there's a science behind waterproofing that
Yeah.
a
Never
lot of
knew
people
that.
don't know.
Now tell us about it.
Well, I mean that.
Come back to your biochemistry days, eh?
Yeah, well, I mean, I had to have meetings with polymer PhDs in Norway just to understand, you know, the ins and outs of it. Now, I wouldn't be able to spell out what, you know,
Right, yeah,
everything
no.
they say, but it's been interesting to learn a lot about it. And the sealing as well. So a lot of coats use tape seams. Mm-hmm. Now I use a cotton backing, and we realized tape seams are not as durable with cotton backing. So we then moved to exterior welded seams.
Wow.
And this holds up very, very well.
You know, one thing that jumps off the page for me is the color palette. These are beautiful, beautiful colors.
Thank you.
And you came in wearing another beautiful color as well. What drives your decision on the colors?
I want people wearing it to look good, and they're bold colors. Bold. I want people to be bold and beautiful.
Right.
You know, so it's a lot of looking at different color palettes, but I look to my customers too, and I poll them. So we have a large social media community, and I poll them and say, you know, what colors would you like to see? What do you want? So some people were waiting on this yellow that I launched in the fall. They were waiting for a year. They went yellow. So I went with like a Dory yellow, very, very traditional.
Yep.
Not everybody's choice, but you know, like the pink is coming out in March. Actually, we're debuting it on the Shopping Network. So we're on Jeannie Becker's show.
Really?
Style Matters.
Yep.
So we're launching the pink there.
Are you on the show yourself?
Yes, yeah.
Cool.
This will be my 4th time, I think.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah. So Jeannie Becker has actually been quite a mentor to me for her work ethic, but also her support of small companies, small fashion companies. I mean, she lived here. She started her career at CBC here. I reached out to her about my product, just thinking, you know, I'll stab in the dark kind of thing. And she wrote me back, and I connected with some of their buyers, and bam, I was on their, it's called
email.
Today's Shopping Choice, but it was the shopping channel.
Yeah.
It's changed the brand, but I do sell a lot of coats through them.
Wow.
A cold email.
Yeah.
Or text, LinkedIn.
Yeah, it was Facebook, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. But I've done that for most of my boutiques that sell. It's all cold calling.
Is that right?
Yeah. I mean, what else can you do?
Yeah.
Some of them were very, like, don't know the brand, click.
Yeah.
But say in St. John's, Twisted Sisters was the first store that took my coat.
Yeah.
And now I've gotten a lot of calls from other companies that want it, but I try not to dilute the sales of the people that have been loyal to me.
Right.
So if I do pick another store, it's in a different area, different clientele. So they're their downtown core. Well, it's funny because I walked in with one of my prototypes and they came up to me, "Where did you get your coat?" And I said, "Oh, it's mine." And they breathed life into this whole, people like this, you know? And I said, "Would you be willing to sell it here?" And they said, "Absolutely." So we've been, they're almost like business partners, right?
Right.
You know, we're very loyal to each other. We have a trust. And I think loyalty is very important in business. And they do so well in selling my product. I'm going to take care of them. You know, I'm not going to dilute their sales with stores next door to them, you know?
So you're dealing directly with the owner?
Yes.
Is there one owner? Or?
Two sisters.
Yeah. Are they, what are their names? Because I don't know the company. I know my wife does.
Tennille and Jacqueline. Wow. Yeah. They're,
Twisted Sister.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Twisted Sisters.
Yeah.
So they've been with me since the beginning, really. So, and I've grown to 20 odd different retailers across the country.
20
odd, yeah.
And that has been cold outreach?
Yeah. It's just me full time.
Yeah.
But I have a marketing company, Altitude Media, Lee and Daw. Young company. It's funny. I went to he's a marketing firm, but I interviewed 6 companies to say, okay, who am I going to help market this? 5 were women led, and this guy Liam, and he was only 21, I think, at the time. One of the things that I really push is not only with my partners, but also with my customers. Like, customer satisfaction is 100% important. Like, I respond within hours of someone emailing. I try to address any concern they have, and they're always right. And I worked at McDonald's for 4.5 years through my university, and their motto was, "The customer is always right." You know, so I try to keep that mantra, the same for my company. And I get a lot of feedback that, there's response is good, and we take care of our Mernini sisters.
Right. Now, certainly when it rains, certainly in this part of the world, sometimes it's cold too. What, do you have an addition to this to keep you warm?
Yes. So one of the feedbacks we had was that, I think.
Am I on it?
Yeah. Was that it was, under a certain temperature, probably 5 degrees. When it got winter rain, it got a bit chilly. And so instead of redesigning the coat and having in it, something that was built into it, I came out with a liner.
Oh, wow.
So I launched this in November.
Okay.
And it's done very, very well.
No kidding. It's beautiful.
But it's so then you can retarget your audience. You retarget buyers, right? And so this is now, we sold plenty since November, and now we're launching it on Shopping Channel as well.
Right. So people who have existing coats, which many would have, this is another option for them right now.
Yeah.
And that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's not something I thought of, but my customers.
That's a feedback loop, right?
Yeah.
That's that continuous improvement cycle in the fashion industry. People are getting cold.
Yeah, and I wore that tonight with my coat, and it was great. And I've had emails from customers going, I just walked my dog completely warm,
Yeah.
And
how active are your customers in communication with you as you move forward?
I couldn't believe they are really very responsive. Even on the Shopping Channel website, like they're surprised how many reviews we've been getting. They just didn't expect the feedback to be so good, and people take the time to write.
Right.
And
That's a big thing, right?
Well, they always write when they're mad.
Yeah.
But I've gotten a lot of emails from people that say, one lady, she was 2XL, and she said, thank you so much. She said, I haven't been able to find a coat to fit my body, my body type. And she said, I just want to thank you for designing something that works for us,
Yeah.
And that was great. And other people saying, I've been searching for a long, full-length raincoat. I don't know why nobody thought of it before. So thank you for, just really, these are feedback that really keep me motivated,
You clearly come from a great foundation. Your family upbringing sounds great and amazing, and the product and what you're doing in the moment is really cool. You're iterating it, adding to it. What's on the horizon? Where do you see this company going?
Well, we are looking international. So I mentioned I'm hiring a consultant, so she's looking to expand it on the West Coast of Canada, but also in the U.S.
Okay.
We're looking at getting into more affiliate marketing programs. So the Shopping Channel is an affiliate program. So they help market your product online. I'm a drop shipper, so I ship to their customers. So we're looking at going to other ones that are very, very large. And once you get in with these companies, it's like
another level.
Yeah, because they want you to succeed because they succeed.
You're the dog chasing the car, and you're going to catch the bumper, I guess, when you're with these guys.
And they don't take anyone.
Yeah.
So you've really got to pitch your story. You really got to pitch your product. You also have to show revenue, people, like your stats for online, people going to your website and your marketing. And so it's an onerous process, but that's my goal. I'm getting on that.
Right.
Maria, I love this. The worst weather, the best raincoat.
Yeah, I just wanted to.
Was that you or Liam, or was that a team effort? Up with that?
That was a team. That was me and my sister, my older sister. I had it a little bit longer, and she shortened it into two sentences, two phrases.
You did a good job, sis. I love that.
One of the features that I love on this coat is the emblem, the logo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Can you see that there?
It's a piece of rock.
Oh,
really?
So it's black granite. I wanted to have a piece of the rock represented on my coat. So the first iteration of this was actually Newfoundland black granite.
Right.
And I was sanding that in my house for months because COVID hit, and my factories that were doing that in St. John's, which weren't like, I think Memorial was helping me polish them, and they closed down. So I had my brother-in-law helping, my dad helping, my friend's cousin helping polish these. I spent a lot of time, and I said, well, economies of scale, I can't do this. I can't have Newfoundland rock, and we don't have a black granite quarry, so it's very difficult to get them cut. So I had to get them done overseas, but it still represents a piece of where I'm from, the rock.
Maria, how many of the original ones did you sand down, you and your family?
1,600.
Oh my Lord!
So those folks out there with the original 1,600, that's a collector's item now.
Yeah, it is. That was a lot of sweat. Yeah. A lot of cursing, because it's to change the black granite from a dull gray to a black. It's a process. So
is that right?
I learned, and to find the granite, it took me. I said, how hard is it to find rock when you live on a rock?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it was difficult because you had to find the right type of rock so it wouldn't crack.
Right.
And it had to be durable. And then I designed the piece. I said, how am I going to get a rock on a coat?
Yeah.
So I worked with another factory in China. We designed this. I actually designed this myself, the metal plate that the rock goes into. Mm-hmm. And then we had the metal, the black granite printed on the rock. So that was a process in itself. But it's kind of like my passion piece of the coat, which I love. And a lot of people don't realize that it's the rock. It's actual rock.
Yeah.
Right. So.
Well, that's
attention to detail.
Well, and also, I mean, you're right. I mean, that's what separates a beautiful product like that, right? It's that passion that the owner of the company is putting into it. You know, I've often bought cars and stuff, and I look at little details that, you know, you learn the history of why the engineering group did that to the car, and I love those stories. And that's a great story that you just told about that. So, are there other products that you got in mind? Are you thinking something else?
Well,
hats, gloves.
Yeah.
Give us an exclusive.
Yeah, give us an exclusive.
Definitely waterproof gloves. It's probably going to come out. Possibly a hat. I had another idea, and it might not be for Mernini, but you notice that I brought my shoes here tonight. Mm-hmm. I really detest having to wear boots and bring shoes and change and then blah blah blah. I in my idea book there is an ice boot that I had designed about having a boot that you can put your shoe in, any type of shoe. And it's like like you guys wear gaiters, right?
Yeah, like galoshes or gaiters, yeah.
So I wanted to design a boot that could fit over a heel.
Oh, really?
But I don't know if I'll ever get there, but it's one of my ideas.
Are there specific countries that you look at that you'd like to move your product into? Is it like...
yes.
You know, I mean, the U.S. is obviously a close one, right?
The U.K.
Yeah.
And of course, Scotland is same climate.
Yeah.
Europe, Ireland.
Yeah.
My biggest competitors, excuse me, are in Denmark and Sweden.
Okay.
So when I had to do my business plan, of course, I looked at competitors. There's a Danish and Swedish company that market really big in Canada. Mm-hmm. So, and they're kind of in line with some of the similar fabric and style because they have a maritime culture as well.
Right.
So they're maybe move into their market as well, but really my focus is U.S., UK, Ireland.
Okay, yeah, that's a good focus for this product for sure. Yeah. You talked a little bit about mentors that you had along the way. Tell me about the importance of mentorship in starting a business like this, or in life, indeed.
I think when you're going and you're trying to develop something that you want to be successful, you have to ask questions. I mean, if you try to do it all by yourself. Now, I am a one-woman team, but I've asked for help by, people who've come before me, people in the business of, plastics, polymers, even mining, because I had that rock there. Just ask a lot of questions and listen, right? because sometimes the way you want it to work is not the way it's going to work.
Right.
So I think, the mentorship piece, I've had, friends that I've really leaned on for advice or opinions. And I guess I always say just keep asking and ask the right questions too, right?
Right.
Maria, I want to take you back a little bit into this conversation to the manufacturing. The idea is written on paper. You sent it and you got a sample. Can you just tell us what it was like to get that first sample? Could I just, talk about the excitement and either the disappointment or the elation, whatever. Just talk a little bit about that for us.
Oh, I got it in the mail, and I rushed to pull it all open, and it was PVC, so it looked like a fish harvester jacket.
Right.
And I put it on. I went, holy, it's so heavy, and it was super long.
Yeah.
I mean, the spec was wrong. They
Right.
didn't. It was supposed to fit me, but it did not. But I trudged up to my mother's house in it and I showed her, and then I brought it to work, showed all my friends, and they were just like, "You're going to sell that?" But, I said, well, I'm going to change it. It's going to look better. But I was so tickled. I was tickled.
Yeah.
When I finished my prototype and got my first big retailer, Simon's in Quebec, took them on. I went outside, did my rain dance. I really enjoy the small wins.
Yeah.
And some of them are obviously, I think they're big wins, but they are small wins overall. But they really drive me, I think.
Yeah, and you must be a lot of those. Like every time another boutique or a retailer takes you on, it must feel great that they believe in you, right?
Yeah. Well, it's just seeing the growth and seeing people believing in the product and really excited about where it's from. I mean, when I did my research on who's doing what, there's a lot of companies on the West Coast, Vancouver's huge retail, made in Canada and all that.
Mm-hmm.
So is Quebec and Ontario. Nothing really was coming out of the East Coast. And I was like, man, we have so much rain. We have so much wind. We're right on the edge of the North Atlantic. The worst weather, the worst operating environment for our seafarers. This is where a product should really come out from. And we know weather. We know we need this. So it really came out of the need for it. And people responded to that.
It's amazing to me that you found a niche within the clothing industry of all industries.
I always say I found a niche within a saturated
saturated market.
Saturated part in the pond. But it's true. I mean, you got there's hundreds of very big brands that sell raincoats. Yeah. And I'm just scratching the surface, but it will reach international. That's my goal, and it will happen.
Yeah, I had dinner last night with a person, and we were just talking about different things, and she asked me what I was up to tomorrow night, and I said I was going to interview you. And she said, I have 3 of those raincoats. And I'm thinking, who has 3 of one product, right? So clearly it's an amazing product.
Well, some of them are actually collecting the colors.
Oh, are they?
My niece's principal has all of them.
How many colors are there?
With this one, it'll be 8.
8 colors.
So there's 7 on the market right now. The 8 will be the one that's coming out in next month. So 8 colors and counting. Yeah.
Wow.
Just because it's the worst weather doesn't mean you have to wear something you don't want to wear, right? You know?
100%. I got to tell you, this color here, this color yellow, is pretty amazing. It is that dory yellow. I think that maybe draws my attention and makes me think of Newfoundland when I look at it. It's a different yellow altogether, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's not bright yellow blinding. We've got lots of lights here. It's just the right color.
And that's a color that my contact over in China gave me. I had a bunch of other ones chosen, and I said, I'm not really sure. I said I want it to look traditional, and I said, can you send me what's selling? What's the hot yellow? And she sent me back samples of mine that I had chosen, the Pantone colors. And then she sent me that one, and I went, no, hands down, that one. Like, so she understands. So when you have that person that gets you, and it's doing very well, like it's like I said, it's not for everyone. It's very bold.
It's a statement for sure. Yeah.
But what is the slogan that I used for my when I first launched? It was to blend in around here, you got to stand out. In Newfoundland, right? Yeah. We got colorful homes, colorful houses, colorful personalities. So
we do have all of those things here, and now we have colorful jackets.
We do.
Right, Maria. I mean, you've had a great journey. I really enjoyed hearing about you personally and your product, and I'm sure many of the people that are about to go buy these things, it's going to be really cool to get to know a little bit about the person behind all of this. But we often ask our guests on the podcast to leave the audience with a piece of advice. What might that look like for you?
I think it's if you have an idea, write it down. If you love it, you just be persistent. Like if you have a passion for something, I didn't have a passion for raincoats, but I had a passion for bringing ideas to life. I had a passion for seeing. It was more like a test for myself. Can I do this? And just go after it. And if you have obstacles that get in your way, find a way around them. Like it might take time, but just keep going.
Jerry, your thoughts?
I absolutely love this conversation. We've talked to a lot of people. We did talk to Diosa Design. That was online. Being in person with you, we've talked to a lot of software development companies, but there's something really neat
cool.
about having the product in hand and listening to you talk about the iterations of it and all that. And then to talk about the rock on the, what did you call it? The metal piece on the arm. Like, it's so cool. But you know what? You're obviously a doer, and we really appreciate you taking the time to share your story. I think you've got nowhere to go but up. It's going to be a lot of really interesting things.
No, I couldn't agree more. Yeah. So if listeners want to get one of these, where do they go to get them? How do they get them?
They can go to Murnini.com, and I'm on all the social handles, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. And on my site, there's a retail section. We can go and look at where they're being sold in stores.
Right. And of course, if retailers are watching this and say, I need that product on my shelf, same routine to get to you?
Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah. I respond within 12 hours. Yeah.
Within 12 hours. Yeah. That's great. And of course, you've laid out the markets you want to be in. So hopefully somebody will be watching in those markets and say, I want to be the first to get that product.
Yeah, great.
Because you're a person that believes in relationships and partnerships. Yeah. So that's fantastic. Well, that was another wonderful conversation on Gale Force Winds, and what an amazing person with an amazing product, with an amazing story behind it. Thanks very much for joining us here and sharing your story and showing us what Murnini has to offer. And I like to leave the podcast with my own piece of advice, and that is, the world needs more Maria Halfyard.
Thank you for tuning in to Gale Force Winds Season 2 on Rogers TV, where we focus on conversations with leaders, business owners, and change makers that inspire. Please.
This program is brought to you by Ignite.